Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the 6th edition. Man, week 6 already. This is Scott and Scott, and we are heading back to school. I am half the Scots. I am your host, Scott Steehn, and I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only. You know him, you love him. He's got a beard this week. Look at this. Look at the beard. It's Scott Reichel. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Can't complain. Had a nice week last week with you as we ended up winning the farm play. So hopefully keep it rolling in this one. Should be a fun week. I would say at first glance, some of the games looked competitive. Some of them looked kind of underwhelming. But yeah, either way, it should be a fun blend. Looking forward to the games for the weekend. I don't know if they'll be as good as the Thursday night football game we saw yesterday in the NFL, but hopefully they are quite competitive and high scoring.
Yeah, it was nice to see a good Thursday night game for a change, or good, hell, even a good primetime game. We haven't had a lot of those lately. So, yeah, very, very good game. Did you come out on the right side of that?
I had the kicking prop. I had McLaughlin over 1.5 field goals, and that got there. So I can't complain.
All right, very nice.
I had a bad beat, though. I had each team to score a touchdown and a field goal in each half at around 33-1.
Yeah.
And the Buccaneers scored 0 touchdowns in the entire second half, so I lost.
I got suckered by that play a couple weeks ago on a game, and yeah, it was missed by a field goal as well. So, all right, there you go, man. We got a full slate tonight. We got some Friday night games, and we'll get to them here in just a second. But I'll give you the regular spiel. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Share the show on social media. If you like what we're doing, tell your friends about it. Get it out there and share in the virtual space. And if you want to get some premium plays from winnersandwhiners.com, don't forget to use the code. What is it? Scott20? Scott's, you got it? You got it there?
Oh, yeah. Let me just pull that up. I believe it's just Scott2.
Scott2. There you go. Yeah. Just use the promo code Scott2. That'll get you 20% off of any and all premium picks over there at Winners and Whiners. Of course, comment section, as always, is open. Sonny D says, "What's up? My excitement about football. That's what's up." And we just started, Scott. You know what we just started?
No, what did we just start? Hockey season.
55 days of football, buddy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say hockey season.
It is hockey season.
The NHL starting.
Yep.
And it officially started today. The Devils are playing in Prague.
Right now. Prague.
Yeah.
Prague.
I took that question a different approach, but neither one of us are wrong.
That's
correct.
There
you go.
That's absolutely correct. I know you're more excited about hockey than I am. I'm a hockey watcher. I'm not really a hockey bettor. Every year I vow to change. Every year I do not. So, and I know you are very good. You're a hockey sniper, as they say, and a big Islanders fan. So, Islanders going to be good this season?
They'll be the same as they always are, which is good enough to make the playoffs, and they'll probably lose immediately. But I'll take it. It is
all right. Okay. All right, man. Let's get rolling. We've got we got a couple of Friday night ranked teams. How about that, Scott? You excited?
Yeah. Hopefully the matchups are competitive, but you have a couple based on the spread that may or may not be too competitive. But we'll see what happens.
All right. Let's talk about the first one there. The Michigan State Spartans traveling out to Eugene to take on the Quackers. Ducks, 23.5 points, man. No respect for Michigan State. Total in this one is 51.5. You know, Scott, I think this Michigan State defense may be getting a little bit overlooked here. Through 5 games, they're giving up just 19 points per game and just 4.8 yards per snap. So, obviously, when you have a team that's has the record that Michigan State does and those kind of defensive stats, you've obviously got a problem on the offense, and that's absolutely true. But this defense can create some havoc, my friend. 15 sacks on the season, 35 tackles for loss. And something I know that you like to talk about, we talk about a lot on this show, this is a huge look-ahead spot for the Ducks, as they've got Ohio State coming to Eugene next week. They don't have to overlook them much not to cover, and I think that's what happens. I'm going to take Michigan State tonight. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I thought Oregon looked okay against UCLA. Thought that they were fine, but they kind of stopped trying to run up the score. Chip Kelly was, I'm sure, annoyed wherever he is, because I know that he used to try to win every game by 60. But now they decided to just beat UCLA by about 20. Just cash out, try to just get the win, move on, keep people healthy, and they coasted to a 21-point win. Oregon has picked it up the last couple weeks, so props to them. But Michigan State, they did lose by 31 to Ohio State. Bit misleading. They had a couple of turnovers in plus territory, and it seemed like they could have scored more points there to keep the game close. Didn't work out. But the point is, I do think that Michigan State actually moved the ball okay on occasion against Ohio State. I think they'll be able to move it a bit against this team, but I think that the Michigan State defense is still underrated, as you said. 23.5 Ohio State on deck. I don't know why I'd pick them to win by 24 plus when they could only beat UCLA by 21. So I'll go with Michigan State to keep this game somewhat close. Give me Oregon by 17.
I think the implication there is Michigan State is a superior team to UCLA. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think so. I don't think UCLA is that good. The argument is that you don't exactly have a quarterback for either team, which is a problem. But if you're asking me which defense I think is better, I would take Michigan State's defense over UCLA. So
Absolutely.
I think Michigan State is slightly better, not by a lot. I'm not sure either team reaches a bowl game, but I do think Michigan State can keep this game somewhat close. If they move the ball, they're draining clock. They don't really go up tempo. They try to run the ball a lot, and I see a lot of potential clock moving. If Michigan State goes on even like a 7-minute field goal drive, it's going to kill some time to keep Oregon off the field. Once again, give me Oregon by 17.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of not having enough possessions to cover that number for sure. Let's talk about one of the more surprising ranked teams of the season. I didn't do enough research. I don't know when the last time they were ranked was. It might have been a while. The Orange of Syracuse traveled out to take on UNLV out there in Sin City. 6.5 is the number. 55.5 is your total. What you got here?
So UNLV played one game without Saluka, and it looked like the greatest show on turf. I mean, they absolutely destroyed Fresno. It didn't matter. The argument, probably not the best sign for Saluka when he leaves and everyone goes, did this team just get better? And it looked like it for a game. I mean, Fresno was viewed as being the preseason second favorites in the Mountain West, behind Boise, obviously, and they got absolutely destroyed. UNLV coasted. Really just looked like a great team. You're looking at their new quarterback, and they scored 59 points. Now, I am going to point out that Williams isn't necessarily the best passer in the world. Had a great game against Fresno, 13 of 16 for 3 touchdowns, but they ran the damn ball down their throats. 252 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 6.5 yards per carry. Syracuse, not very good against the run. I feel like that's a bit of a problem here. Plus, the first away game for Syracuse all season, so not exactly a good spot if you want to back a team making its first road, I'd say, appearance this season. UNLV has played 2 home games this season, one against an FCS team and one against Fresno State. They're averaging over 60 points per game. So the offense has been great at home. I think Syracuse can move the ball too. I like the over in this game. I think that Syracuse has not really been a run-first team like in years past. They throw a lot. I see a lot of big plays here. Give me a lot of points. UNLV might score 40 in this game. It is possible. I'll go with UNLV, but I am going to go with the over. That total feels very low for a Syracuse defense that has been kind of soft this season and an offense that can light it up with the passing game. Give me the over, and the total's too low.
All right, I agree with your over, but I think we're gonna come at it from a little different angle. I'm looking at a serious step up for this Rebels defense. The best passing offense they've faced so far has been Fresno State, and the Bulldogs, in spite of the fact they lost badly, still threw for 317. But what doomed them was 3 picks and a punt blocked for a TD. UNLV has wins over Houston and KU. Those wins seemed a lot more impressive at the time than they do now here towards the middle of the season.
The Kansas win was fluky, too, if you factor in like the fumble that nobody picked up and all the other stuff that happened. That game they could have easily lost.
It seemed like they gave them like 17 tries from inside the 2, too. So
they did, yeah. And you had to play at the end of the first half with that wheel route with no time left for a touchdown. So, yeah, UNLV got a bit lucky to actually win that KU game.
Okay, there you go. But, yeah, this is going to be the first team that they've faced that is inside the top 50 in EPA per pass, and they get a serious threat with that transfer from Ohio State, Kyle McCord. He's thrown for 14 touchdowns so far in the season. That's 4th in the country. And he's thrown for 339 in every game. But they've also got pretty good running back there. And LaQuinn Allen averaging 5.3 yards per carry. Pretty good threat out of the backfield. Averages 4 catches a game for about 40 yards. You know, I don't know how sold I am on Hajj Malik Williams after one start. I think that's still a disrupting thing there with Saluka leaving because of an NIL dispute. Hard to believe Vegas didn't pay somebody out, Scott. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think they have.
I mean, it takes some time to be fair. They got to go to the cage, you know.
Well, that's true. That's where he didn't want to wait for him to go to the cage and cash out the chips. They need to get Gadsden involved again in this offense. He's kind of disappeared here the last couple of games. And the reason they've done that is because they've started doubling him. Well, guess what happens? McCord has been able to hit Tabor Pena, who has 14 catches over his last 2 games. I like the Qs here, buddy. I like the orange. I think this is a serious step up for UNLV, but I do like. I agree with your over there as well. All right, let's talk about a little Saturday action. Is UCLA? Man, we just can't get away from that team, Scott.
It looks so weird seeing them against like Wisconsin and Penn State and like all these other teams, and you're like, oh yeah, they're in the Big Ten. Forgot about that.
Yeah, it really is bizarre. They're traveling to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. Penn State currently 27.5-point favorites, and 46.5 is the number right there. You know, this Penn State defense, I don't think gets enough pub. And Penn State in general doesn't get enough pub because, we're always hearing about Ohio State. We're always hearing about Michigan. Now you got the new teams from the West, and poor old Penn State is like, all we do is fucking destroy people every week. So case in point, last week in Illinois, they gave up just 59 second-half yards to the Illini. And this is a UCLA team that has really, really struggled to run the football, Scott. They are 133rd in the country. That's close to dead last, my friend, with 57 rushing yards per game, averages 2.48 yards per carry. This line is not good. And Penn State, if they do anything extremely well, it is shut down the run. They're 7th in run defense, 4th in yards per carry, allowing just 2.3 yards per attempt. They also get after the quarterback, 4.5 sacks last week, and 9 tackles for loss against Illinois. And they have held 14 of their last 15 Big Ten opponents under 100 yards. Scott, it is hard to beat the number if you can't score. I think Penn State gets to 35 here, and I think that's enough to cover. What say you?
So I really am not sure what to think of this Penn State team because they've looked good this season. Illinois, of course, was a ranked team. They were undefeated. Illinois did cover. Shout out to Illinois. They scored 7 points and covered the spread. But I think that for the sake of the matchup, Penn State's offense has kind of left a bit to be desired for me. Scored 34 against West Virginia. Not exactly a great team. Bowling Green, they ended up beating by 7. But that game, they were favored by a ton. Beat Kent State, the worst FBS team in the entire country. And they beat Illinois by 14, only scoring 21. So I think Penn State's good. I think the reason why people don't take them seriously is because Franklin can't beat a top 10 team to save his life. So they kind of view him as the gatekeeper team in the top 10 every year. If you beat them, you're really good. If you lose to them, then you're not. That's kind of how we look at Penn State. They're not like a bridge team, but you never actually view them to seriously contend for anything. For this matchup, I don't think UCLA is any good. The defense, I think, is okay. The offense, of course, is a problem, but they lost by 17 to LSU, and they ended up losing to Oregon by 21. It is a West Coast team traveling east, which is not exactly a great scheduling spot, which is the problem we have with this conference realignment. But I think I like the under in this game because I think Penn State's defense, as you said, will be able to shut down this offense. I don't think Garber's any good. I think we agree with that. And I do think UCLA's defense is fine. But I think Penn State with USC on the road on deck is a look-ahead spot. Maybe it might be. I think you're looking at a spot where Penn State goes up, kind of coasts. You said 35. 35-10 is realistic to me. That still goes under. But if you have a game against LSU on the road and that game only lands 51, LSU can't stop anybody. You only scored 17 points against LSU's defense. You might have a hard time getting to 10 in this game. I'll go with the under. I think Penn State will go up, maybe coast. But that total feels a bit high when we both think UCLA with Garbers will have nothing to offer this defense. So I'll go with the under in this game.
Yeah, I don't hate it, but I'll tell you,
Penn State could, in theory, go nuts, but they haven't done so this season.
That's what bothers me. This is a UCLA team that's given up 118 points in their 3 games against real teams: Indiana, LSU, and Oregon. I put Penn State right in that class, man. I think there's a good chance they give up 40 plus here. So Godspeed on your under there, my friend.
So you like the UCLA team total under instead?
Yeah. I think that's the way I'd play it, which would be, what do we got here? 23, somewhere in the 10-ish range. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
I think it's going to be a struggle to get to double digits. It could get the turnover. All right, let's talk about SMU and Louisville. Louisville ranked number 22 in the nation. And we've got this spread at 6.5, the total at 56.5. Louisville, It's a classic. They played good enough to win against Notre Dame, Scott. They turned the ball over 3 times. First time all season they've done that. And they lose by 7 to the Golden Domers. They outgained them by 154 yards, but they were unable to bring home the victory. Meanwhile, SMU, well, they're doing what SMU does, and that is score a ton of points. They're averaging 38 points per game. They hung 66 on TCU and 42 in Florida State in consecutive weeks. I don't see any other way this one goes but over. Give me the over 56.5.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Louisville, once again, you said they played well enough to win. They give up 31 points with 11 first downs. You know how hard that is to do? 11 first downs, you give up 31 points. They outgained Notre Dame by like 100. So I thought they played well offensively. You said the turnovers, that was an issue. SMU has been solid lately. TCU defensively can't stop anybody, and Florida State's quit on the season. We'll mention them in a second against Clemson. But I do think that for this matchup, I see points. SMU made a quarterback switch. I was skeptical, and it's paid off. So I think they can score. Louisville offensively has got firepower too. So I see points in this game. I'll go with the over as well.
Okay, very good. MIZZOU, Scott. The only game between ranked teams this week is number 9 Mizzou travels to College Station, take on the Aggies. We've currently got this one at 2.5 and 48.5. What say you about my Tigers?
Yeah, so Missouri is undefeated somehow. Probably should have lost to Vandy, but you count it. A&M has been okay. They switched quarterbacks, thank God. Ended up using Reed, who I think has actually been pretty good. Now, I think A&M is favored because, one, College Station gets a huge reputation. Truth is, they might not be as good in College Station as you might think they are, but that's a separate story. Just keep that on the hush-hush. Point is, Missouri didn't look great against Boston College. They didn't look great against Vandy. They won both games. I thought Drinkwitz had an atrocious game against Vandy. Kept settling for the kicker who couldn't hit anything, and then they're winning the game anyway. I'm going to go A&M. I think it's pretty telling that the worst-ranked team is favored in the spot, and I think A&M is starting to find something. I know they barely beat Arkansas in Jerry World. They had a hard time against Bowling Green. I get it. They haven't looked that dominant this season. They are 4-1 anyway. I do think the line's very short, and I think that it's pretty telling, but I'm going to back A&M here in Kyle Field. This line just feels like a type of matchup where they're daring to take Missouri. I'm not going to do it. It's one of those games where I feel like Missouri has a slip-up, and you look back at the end of the year and go, well, they could have competed for an SEC title game. And it's like, yeah, but they lost to A&M in that random game in October. It kind of feels like that. I'm sure you can relate to it because you, of course, root for this team. It checks those boxes where Drinkwitz would lose this type of game, and they win a couple games in a row after it. I'll go with A&M. I think with them at home laying this number, it feels trappy. I might take the bait on it, but I'll go with A&M.
All right. Yeah, I don't hate it. I can't make a valid case for Mizzou after the way they played against Vandy. I really can't.
They're undefeated somehow, but it does not look pretty.
No, it does not. If they do something against A&M, I think that'll really show something. But these are two offenses that really like to run the football, and you've got two defenses that kind of hang their hat and on a sense of pride that they're able to stop the run. And the Aggies, they struggled the first 2 weeks against the run. They gave up 197 to Notre Dame. They gave up 180 yards on the ground to McNeese. Yikes. But they said they needed to fix it. Elko said, we need to fix that. And they did because they've only given up 80.3 yards per game in their last 3. This Aggie passing game, we've talked about that. They really struggled. Now, they're playing games with the quarterback situation, Scott. Everybody in the world thinks it's going to be Marcel Reed. But Elko is still playing the game that's, Wegman's been able to throw the ball in practice. We don't know. But I think you've got to keep with the guy that's 3-0, right?
I got to imagine.
There's no way they're going to go back to Wegman. I think Reed certainly gives them a dual threat option that Wegman does not. And this is an A&M team that wants to run the ball. Make no mistake, they're 11th in rush rate. But I have faith in this Tigers defense. They're very good in their own right, 19th EPA per rush and 10th in rushing success rate. Both those defenses are very sound. Mizzou gives up just 12 points per game, A&M 18. The under is a combined 6-3 in their games, and Mizzou would be 4-0 to the under had they not gone into overtime because that would land at 40 in regulation. I like the under in this one, Scott. I think it's going to be an absolute grind on both sides of the ball. I'll take the under 48.5.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I feel like it's kind of a similar script to why we liked the under in the Boston College game against Missouri. We just thought it was going to be an ugly game, draining a bunch of clock, and then whichever team, I guess, does better up front's going to win. I don't mind the under. but I'll go A&M 24-20.
All right. Yeah, that was one of our genius games where we look really, really smart. So
Yep.
I like that one. Let's talk about number 23, Indiana. Man, a bunch of new blood here in the top 25, Scott. They're heading to just south of Chicago to take on Northwestern. Northwestern playing in the little 6,000 seat soccer stadium. What the hell are they? What is it? Field hockey? What the hell are they playing in?
It doesn't matter. Only 2,000 people show up anyway, so it's
a
fine.
great venue, though, dude. Right on the lake.
It's a great venue, but it's Northwestern football. I don't think anybody really cares.
Right. We've got Indiana at 13.5. 41.5 is the total here, Scott. You know, people don't know a lot about this Indiana team, and they play really good defense, giving up just 13 points per game to FBS foes. Northwestern, we have talked a lot about their offense or lack thereof. That hasn't gotten fixed. I think the defense is taking a step backwards. You know what I think? I think that Indiana only needs to get to 24 to cover this number. And the Hoosiers, they are putting some points on the board, averaging 41.8 points per game. That's 11th in the nation. I think Indiana gets to 24 and then some and easily covers this nearly 2-touchdown spread.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Northwestern did score a grand total of 5 points last game against Washington. So when the offense outscores the defense by 1 point, probably not a good sign. But for this one, I am going to go with Indiana. When it comes to underrated transfer portal moves, Rourke's got to be top 3. I mean, Rourke's been phenomenal for this Indiana team. They can throw. The defense has been solid. Look good against Maryland as they won by 14. Maryland had a long touchdown run because the ref blocked somebody, so they set up a free touchdown. Point is, though, I think Indiana's a solid team. Rourke has 11 touchdowns, 2 picks. You're looking at Ellison, who's been a good running back as well. Surratt's been a good receiver. Northwestern's a quarterback. You want to guess how many passing touchdowns he has?
2.
The answer is 0.
Oh.
Wright has 0 passing touchdowns and 1 pick. So they have Porter, who's been there for what feels like 45 years. But their quarterback situation is kind of rough. They used Mike Wright for most of the games, and they ended up switching to Lausch last game, who went a casual 8 of 27 for 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. So, yeah, whichever quarterback they use, I don't think it matters. But their leading passer in terms of yards has 0 touchdowns, and their other option went 8 of 27 last game. So I'll go with Indiana. I think you said 24 is a number they can get to. I can see that. But I think Indiana's defense is good. Rourke, though, dangerous. Dangerous quarterback with this team. I like Indiana as well. I think they're the better team.
You know what they say, Scott? When you have no quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
Yes, and they say when you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Northwestern does have 2. They just both suck, so they have none.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Absolutely.
But would you agree with that? Rourke, when it comes to transfer moves, has probably been like a top 3 transfer in the country. I think he has to be. He's been great.
Yeah, I think McCord from Syracuse is right up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to argue with that. So yeah, we're both on the Hoosiers here. Somebody asked for a want to do a bonus pick?
Sure.
Anything on
I don't think Houston can score.
Yeah.
So I think TCU can throw the ball around the parking lot. It really comes down to if you trust TCU's defense to get enough stops, but Houston offensively is just a mess.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to go with TCU because I don't think Houston can get past like 14 points in any given game. But the defense is fine, so it's kind of a tough matchup there. But I'll put faith in Hoover. Give me the Hoover dam to put together some points here. Give me TCU.
Damn Hoover. All right, very good. All right, let's go back to the Big Ten up there to Columbus, OHIO, as the 3rd-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes entertain the Hawkeyes from Iowa City. Scott, we've got this one at 18.5 for Ohio State, and 45.5 is the number. What say you about the Buckeyes?
Don't we just always assume that Ohio State kills this team?
Yes.
Isn't that usually how it goes? I mean, Iowa's been more high scoring this year than expected. Then again, every total they have is about I don't know, 15. So they go over in every game. But Ohio State's been good. I can't say they've been dominant from start to finish in some of these games, but they win by a bunch of margin anyway. Michigan State game's a great example. I thought they were coasting for a decent portion of the second half. They still won by 31 points. I just feel like this defense is great. Howard got injured briefly last game. He came back. Iowa has Johnson, who's a good running back. I don't like McNamara at all. I don't think he's a good quarterback. But Ohio State tends to dominate this team because they have better athletes. They have more speed. They spread Iowa out wide, and they get a bunch of big plays. Do I think Iowa can guard Smith on the outside? No. Do I think they can guard any of these fast receivers? No. I think that Ohio State, unless they get stubborn with the ground game, I think Iowa can't stop the run. So maybe like Judkins and company will struggle. But if they actually go vertical at the passing game, I do not trust Iowa's defensive backs to keep up with these receivers. I got to go Ohio State. I feel like Ohio State kills this team all the time. The only time Iowa has a shot is when they're actually at home in Kinnick. And besides that, they get killed every time. So I'll go with Ohio State. I see them winning by 20 plus.
Yeah, I'm going to reach the same conclusion with slightly different reasoning. I think this is going to be all about the battle in the trenches, man. Because as you mentioned, this Iowa team has zero vertical passing game, just not good. It's basically their offense is hand off the ball to Caleb Williams or Caleb Johnson and see what happens. And he's really good. He's second in the FBS with 685 yards. He's got
against that front though, that's not going to
9 touchdowns. That's the problem. Ohio State, third in the country, giving up just 61.7 yards per game on the ground, and they've surrendered 1 touchdown by way of the ground so far, and a stunning 1.84 yards per carry. Will Johnson do better than that? Probably. Will they do it good enough to carry a one-dimensional team? Not a chance. I think this is a excellent opportunity for Ohio State to continue their dominance over this one-trick pony Iowa team. You shut down the run, and that game is over, Rover. And I think that's exactly what happens. I'll take Ohio State along with you, my friend. Okay, let's move on to the SEC as we head to the other Columbia, South Carolina. As Ole Miss invades, Scott, the Gamecocks, they're ranked number 12 in the country. 8.5 points is the line. 53.5 is the total. Mississippi got a little slap to the face last week with that loss there in Kentucky. And the reason is, Scott, they got away from running the football. Before that, they'd run the ball 53% of the time, but last week they handed off to Parrish and Jones just 16 times in the loss. I think they might have learned something. Unfortunately for the Gamecocks, they still haven't learned how to stop the run, Scott. They're 76th in defensive success rate versus the rush, and I think they're going to see a huge dose of Parrish and Jones coming at them from all different angles. Meanwhile, if you watch the South Carolina offense, they have their own issues, especially when it comes to the forward pass. They are 80th in offensive success rate on dropbacks, and they throw for just under 180 yards per game. I want to add some fun to that, Scott. Lenora Sellers, their starting quarterback, is questionable in this one. So
I see problem though.
I see many problems for South Carolina. I think this is a get-right spot for Ole Miss. I'll take them to cover the number, even on the road.
Yeah, according to some recent reports, Sellers is probably going to play.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good move or not because you need a mobile quarterback and he hurt his ankle. So it's probably not the guy you want to be using. I feel like Ole Miss I know we both liked Kentucky last week. Or at least I did. I thought that Ole Miss was going to struggle against this defense because Kentucky's defense is really good. South Carolina didn't play last week. Do I think this team's good? Not really. They're 3-1. They did kill Kentucky in kind of a weird game if you go through the stats. But Ole Miss, they are the much better team. You mentioned that they abandoned the run. They also gave up a massive drive to Kentucky late, and Kentucky's offense isn't very good. So Ole Miss's defense kind of fell apart. They missed a field goal at the end. I think Ole Miss should bounce back in this game. It would be quite fitting of Lane Kiffin, though, if they lost this game too, and just Beamer finds a way to pull off the upset. But I don't think South Carolina's that good. I just watching them play. I think that they're fine. They almost beat LSU, but I don't think this team's anything special. I'll go Old Dominion. Not Old Dominion. Sorry, they barely beat Old Dominion. I think Ole Miss gives them a harder time this time around. Give me Ole Miss to win this game by 10 plus. They'll be pissed off. I think they'll run the ball. You mentioned that once again they can't really stop the run. That's a problem. I think Dart's an overrated quarterback, but I think he's fine. I think he's definitely the best quarterback in this matchup by a wide margin. But you're going to give me an injured quarterback starting in his first game in, I don't know, a couple of weeks at this point. I don't like that prospect at all. I'll go Ole Miss.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I watched game film on that South Carolina-Kentucky game, and that was a really weird thing where Kentucky just had defensive breakdowns and had guys open. South Carolina had guys open deep, like 5 different times.
And then after that, Kentucky shut down Georgia, and they shut down Ole Miss. So I don't really know what happened there.
Right.
But
yeah, I watched that game. That's the worst defense in the country, and then they just bowed up, man. So, All right, let's go between the hedges, buddy. UGA, University of Georgia, is hosting Auburn. Auburn is the Bulldogs are down to 22. I got it 22.5. 22-point favorite, 51.5 is your number. Tell me about this one.
I hate this Auburn team. You can make an argument they should be undefeated, but their quarterbacks are just incompetent, and they find ways to throw picks in the worst possible situations every time. Should have been Oklahoma last week. I know we both liked Oklahoma, never in doubt. Missing the top 6 wide receivers, never in doubt. Point is, though, it looked like Auburn had the game on cruise control. They were up 10. They ended up missing a field goal right before half, which I thought might come back to bite them. Twice, actually, because they went off. I think they went off sides, and they ended up missing it again. Then Auburn had a turnover late, and then you saw them throw the pick 6. And it just felt like Auburn in all these games is a ticking time bomb, where they look good. They have good receivers. They can run the ball a bit. I like Hunter. I think he's a good running back. And yet you know their quarterback is going to blow the game in every single game. There's nothing you can do about it. You just know it's going to happen. The question I have for you, how good is Georgia? Because I don't know. That game against Bama was an all-timer, but it was also very weird where they got curb stomped. Then Bama kind of took their foot off the gas, and Georgia tried to sneak through the back door. That's kind of how the game went. But Georgia defensively has not exactly been that great, and I'm not a big Carson Beck guy. I think Auburn can keep this game close, unless you think Georgia is just totally pissed off after losing to Bama, and they take it out on this team. I think Auburn's fine. The issue is, once again, please stop turning over the ball 3 times a game, and your team would be decent. I'm taking Auburn plus the points. I think 22 is too big. Georgia hasn't wowed me like they have in previous years. I think Georgia wins, and they win by like 14. I think Auburn's defense is fine. I think the offense is okay with the exception of the turnovers. Please stop throwing pick 6 in big moments. I'll take Auburn plus 22.
Okay. I understand your logic, but
You're going Georgia. I get it. I'm
gonna go with the point you kind of glossed over there. I don't want to be Auburn this week or Mississippi State next week. I think this is a pissed off Dogs team.
No.
I think they run this team out of the building, Scott. I see no mercy. This is a team. These are 2 teams that really don't like each other too much anyway. I think the University of Georgia is the far superior team. I understand your rationale. 22 is a lot of points. Auburn has been competitive. I don't think they're competitive tomorrow. I like the Georgia Bulldogs laying that fat number.
Can I just bet the minus 300 on Thorne interception and just call it a day? Because it's going to happen at some point.
No,
I made it up. It should be minus 300. It was a pick every game. Give me Georgia defensive touchdown at some point in this game. I don't mind that angle. But yeah, once again, it's a spot where I think you might be right in terms of like the spot itself being a very solid pro Georgia spot. But Auburn's 2-3. They might be the best 2-3 team in the country. They really could be 5-0. It's really just about how dumb this team is down the stretch. So that could come back to bite them again, but I'll go Georgia by 17. Whatever.
Okay. All right. Your new number 1 team, Scott, the Alabama Crimson Tide, travels to Nashville to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Alabama is a slight favorite in this one, Scott. I've got it at 22.5. What do we have here officially?
I'm trying to find it on the board.
Okay.
I don't even know if we have a slide for that.
All right.
We do not.
We're gonna go with my numbers. I've got them at 22.5 and the total 53.5 in this one. Scott, we've talked about Mizzou, and we're not sure how good Mizzou is.
Vandy's not bad.
But this Vanderbilt team, they showed some chops last week, and they especially showed chops on the defensive side of the ball. The problem is their offense still ain't very good. Bama had some definite defensive breakdowns there in the second half. I'm going to guess they get those cleaned up. I think the Commodores' only strategy here is to run the ball as much as possible, take your short gains, stay ahead of the chains, keep the clock moving, and keep Alabama off the field. I think this one goes under the total of 53.5. What about you?
Yeah, I think Bama kills them. I feel like you make the argument it's a great letdown spot after beating Georgia. You're now the number 1. Saban left. You're back atop the mountain right now. Vandy, my main issue, and you mentioned the Bama defense. The passing defense self-destructed in the second half. Vandy isn't really known for being a great throwing team. I think Pavi is good, but people really like his dual threat ability and his ability to run. I don't think Vandy's passing game is that great. I think it's fine, but it also, we're talking about Georgia by comparison. It just be those, I don't want to say unspoken agreements, but like Bama goes up early, they eventually coast. Vandy takes this 34-7 loss and just calls it a day. Like, don't die. We'll move on to the next week and we'll go from there. I think Bama goes up and then they win this game by like 30. But Pavia this season has been fine. He's completing 63.5% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, no picks. But I still view this Vandy team as being a run-first offense. Going by pass attempts here, Pavia's attempted less than 24 pass attempts in 3 of the 4 games. And the Missouri one, he attempted 23. That game did go to double overtime. So this team does want to run the ball a lot. That's not really the area of concern I have for Bama's defense. And I think that Bama's got too much speed on the outside, for at least offensively, with, of course, Ryan Williams, who can't even vote, but he could dominate Georgia. I do think you're looking at, because that's a 17 joke, because he's only 17 years old. Point is, I do think that Bama is just too talented for this team. Vandy gets killed by this team every year. I think Bama wins, but I think it's not embarrassing. I'll give, once again, Bama roughly a 28 to 30-something point win. Vandy won't be able to run. Nobody will get open in the passing game, and Bama can just use their speed to generate a bunch of big plays. Give me Bama by a lot.
I don't disagree with that either. Speaking of another huge spread, let's head west to the Smurf turf as Boise State is at home against. Were they against?
Utah State.
Utah State. Oh, God. No wonder I forgot them. 26.5 is the number that I have, or 20. We've gone to 27, and 65.5 is your total right there. Scott, how do you see this one?
I think Genty's my favorite player in all of college football. He was last year. I had a great time. I used to bet his player props every game last year. This year I can't do it because his props are like 180 rushing yards. But he goes over in every game. What does he have? 13 touchdowns in 4 games?
Yep.
Which is almost impossible. But here we are. He killed Washington State, which was really just an all-time performance there. I hope he gets the Heisman. He's not going to, but I hope he does. Utah State, though, we know is not very good. Gave up 45 points to Temple. Are you out of your mind? Gave up 38 to Utah with a backup quarterback. Gave up 48 to USC. They can't stop anybody. Boise might score 50 in this game. It comes down to how much they want to pad Genty stats. Because Genty could potentially go for 300-plus yards in this game. And nobody would blink an eye. They would just be like, oh, yeah, what do you go for, 330 and 4 touchdowns? Yeah, sounds about right.
Yep.
Unless they pull everyone because Boise just wants to win and they're going to move on. I think Utah State defensively is atrocious. Offensively, they might be okay. Boise's defense, I'm really not a big fan of. I mean, 45 to Georgia Southern, 37 to Oregon, 24 to Washington State. I mean, that was a lot of garbage time stuff. The defense was actually fine in that game. I think I like the over in this game. Boise can really push for 50. And if they want to get Genty another like Heisman-type game, he really could go for 300 yards and like 5 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I'm not even exaggerating. That is a possibility.
Yep.
I think Boise might lay it on them and score maybe 50-plus by themselves. Give me the over. I think Boise lays it on them. But I do think that the spread might be a bit dangerous because this defense I don't really like. Just give me points. Give me Genty for a 60-yard touchdown run in the first quarter, maybe a 70-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. You look up and he's got 180 at the half, and then you're kind of like, all right, well, where are we going to go from here? Genty, anytime touchdown, by the way, minus 4,000. Genty first touchdown score, plus 125. For first touchdown score,
all right,
plus 125. So, yeah, give me Boise and give me the over.
All right, very good. Yeah, let's play a little transitive property, Scott. The Aggies lost by 16 to Temple, like as you mentioned, as they gave up
45 points.
45 points to the Owls. Now, so you ask yourself, well, is Boise 10 points better than Temple? Yes, they are, Scott. That's as simple as it gets for me. I don't like this matchup for Utah State. Truly, truly terrible football team. Bottom 5 in the country. God bless you, Kent State. Boise State rolls them up here. They call their shot and cover that.
I really hope they don't pull Genty, though. If you're trying to get a group of 5 running back to win the Heisman, you got to just let him go for 400 yards. You got to just let him go for the record at some point. You got to let him pad it.
And I think this is the perfect game to do that. I think you can run him. You can have him catch passes out of the backfield. He's going to have a massive game. I don't know that he rushes for 300, but I bet there's a good chance he goes for 300 combined. So, yeah, we're on the same page here. Number 15, Clemson, Scott. They're heading down to Florida to take on the Seminoles. We've got this one at 14.5 for Clemson, and 46.5 is the number. This Tigers offense is really starting to impress me. I got to be honest with you. They look terrible against Georgia, but they have hung a big number on everybody else since then. I'm looking at the total here, buddy. I think it's very possible Clemson gets to that 46.5 almost by themselves with very little help from Florida State. And I think if Florida State gets to 10, this one sails over the total. I'll take the over 46.5 here.
Well, based on what you just said, if Florida State gets to 10, it's going over, then just give me the spread. I think Clemson's going to kill this team. Like, I don't know why I would expect Florida State to stay competitive. Big news, though, UNLV not playing in this game.
Right.
They're going to Brock Glenn. You might remember Brock Glenn got the start in the ACC title game last year against NC State.
How'd that go?
They won the game.
Yeah.
Now it's against Louisville, sorry. They won the game. He was a casual 8 of 21. Didn't go well against Georgia in the bowl game. Can interest you in 9 of 26? I think he's terrible. We saw Clemson beat up on NC State, who was also using a backup quarterback with Bailey, and they were up by about 40 at halftime.
Yep.
Florida State gave up 40-plus to SMU. We saw them get buried in the game before that, too. Clemson's going to beat the brakes off this team. Florida State, you might remember, went into Clemson last year, and they won. And I think that Clemson's going to be pissed. Give me Clemson by potentially 30. The argument actually could be made that Florida State has quit on the season. You can make the argument. When you lose to SMU by 20-plus points after getting embarrassed the week prior, it's a sign your team might be dead to rights. I think Clemson destroys this team, and them losing to Florida State last year is a cherry on top. Give me revenge. That's going to be served quite cold for Florida State. Clemson by potentially 30. I think Florida State's done.
Okay, very good.
Do you think they're done? It really seems like they might have quit on the season.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you look at that SMU game. That was their snapback game. That was their save the season game, and
they rolled over.
And they rolled over. Yeah, I totally agree.
I think that's like a runner-up for farm play for me. Like, I think Clemson's going to kill this team.
Yep, agreed. Let's take a look at Michigan travels for the first time this year, I think, right?
I believe so. I'm trying to remember if they played another road game earlier. I don't think so.
They play every game in the big house. Number 10 ranked Michigan travels to Washington to take on the Huskies. Huskies, Scott, unranked and still the favorite of 1.5 points here. And the total for this game has been set at 41.5. How do you see this one going?
So the system didn't work last week because BYU ended up beating Baylor. You had an unranked team that was favored. BYU is really lucky they had a great first half because, damn, they tried to blow that game in every possible way. But nice hold on to win there. Washington, it really comes down to Michigan's inability to complete a forward pass. That's what it comes down to. You're going to have a team on the road, and that's the first road game of the season. Is Washington good? Not really. Lost to Rutgers. They lost by 3. They were down double digits in that game, so they kind of made a comeback late to make the score more respectable. Beat Northwestern, lost to Washington State. I mean, only scoring 19 points at home against Washington State's not ideal. And they beat Eastern Michigan. So they haven't really beaten anybody this entire season at all. You beat Northwestern, you beat Eastern Michigan, you beat Weber. Congrats. Michigan can't throw, but they beat USC, if that counts. They beat Minnesota. They should have won that game by more. Minnesota got robbed on the onside kick. That should have counted. But the point is they were up by double digits. Minnesota scored a late touchdown. Crazy one-handed catch by Minnesota. But the point is, I think Michigan's better than this team. I think the argument can be made that Washington at home with Rodgers can throw, and they'll be able to move the ball a bit. This game's going to be ugly. It's going to be really, really ugly. But I do think Michigan is the better team. So I'm going to go against the system. Maybe Dave Aranda just sabotaged it for me. I'll go with Michigan. I'll go with Michigan to get the job done. It's a tough game. It's an ugly game. I don't mind the under. But I think Michigan's faced off against better competition, and that counts for me. They played Texas. They played USC. They played Minnesota. They played actual teams. I think Washington's done that. They ended up losing to Rutgers. They haven't really beaten anybody. So I'll go with Michigan.
All right. I'm going to trust the bookmakers, and I'm going to trust the system on this one, Scott. Because at first glance, this line doesn't make a bit of sense. No reason
that is true.
Washington should be favored. I've tried to outsmart the books. That's a tough task. It really is. I'm going to play the Huskies here, buddy. It's not going to be a big play. Probably won't play in real life for the purposes of this show. I think Washington gets it done. We still don't know how good this Michigan team is on the road. So we're going to find out. Give me the Huskies in a close one.
See, we flipped because I tried it last week. The blind went back Baylor, and that
Right.
did not work out at all. So
I
now
told
you're
you
going to
Baylor
have
was
to
terrible,
try.
dude.
I know they're bad. I know they're really, really bad. Like I don't know how Aranda's still employed. I thought he'd be fired already. But point is, I tried it with Baylor. It was a close your eyes special. That's kind of what you got for this one. But Washington's actually competent, so maybe they'll pull it off.
Okay. Speaking of the Golden Gophers, they entertain USC as the Trojans come to town, ranked 11th in the country. USC currently favored by 8.5.
Yes, I believe so.
Got it.
Yeah, I have the spread here.
There you go. 8.5 total in this game is 49.5. Scott, I got to tell you, I like this Gophers defense, man. They have done very, very well. Trojans played a good game there in Michigan, but I think this Minnesota team is sneaky good. I would probably take USC at 7 or less, but you're going to give me more than a touchdown for the Golden Gophers here. I think they get it done. I'll take Minnesota plus the 8.5. I think that's a few too many points.
So the one thing that I do want to point out is that USC did lose to a team that couldn't complete a forward pass. Big reason they got dominated in the trenches. Now, I think USC is definitely the much better team if you want to go based on talent, but it's a game in Minnesota. They struggled against Wisconsin. They trailed the half, and they woke up and they covered. I'm so annoyed you were on the right side of that because I was a fan of Wisconsin plus the points, and that was just an absolute choke job. I think they got outscored 28-0 in the second half, but Wisconsin gave this team problems. Wisconsin sucks. Like, that game was close for like 3 quarters. I think Minnesota can keep it close. Brosmer, I'm not the biggest fan of, but they could have potentially beaten Michigan. They got robbed on the onside kick. Iowa's Iowa. They don't beat Iowa ever. I don't think USC's defense is that great. I think I am going to take the points. I think USC will win. Maybe it's going to be a 7-point game, give or take, but I think this game's going to be ugly. But I think that Minnesota makes it ugly intentionally. Yep. Give me Minnesota to lose this game like 23-20. Some ugly game. Minnesota loses, flex on the hot seat again. But they cover, so we don't care. Give me Minnesota plus the points.
Yeah, like I said, if this number was 7 or less, might have a different play on it. But I like those extra points. Let's move to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Scott, as the Hogs take on a pretty tough task as number 4 Tennessee comes to town. We've got this one at.
I'm sorry, which game did you say?
Arkansas, Tennessee.
I'm sorry, Arkansas, Tennessee. I see. There's no order to these, so I'm just like trying to find it. We don't have that.
Okay, good.
That's not on the menu.
All right, we'll skip that one then. No, all right. Tennessee's 13.5 point favorite.
I found it.
Okay, 57.5.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. Numbers match. It's you, my friend.
I think for this one, I gotta go Tennessee. Arkansas, I get it. It looks very trappy. Arkansas hung in there against A&M. They've had a couple games they probably should have won. They should have beaten Oklahoma State. We know they choked that game away. I just think Tennessee's really good. I said this before the game against Oklahoma. I think that Tennessee is a top 4 team in the country. I think they are really, really good. I think that this defense has been incredible. I think you're looking at Heupel, who I thought would never be able to create a good defense, and he did. The offense is solid. Sampson's a great running back. They got Nico at quarterback. They have big play receivers. The question is, do I think Arkansas is actually able to keep up with this team? Maybe for a little while offensively, but over the course of the game, probably not. I think Tennessee is just a couple classes above Arkansas. I'm going to go Tennessee. They didn't play last week, I believe. They had a bye, so they had an extra week of prep if you wanted it. But I think Tennessee is legitimately a title contending team. I'm not saying they're going to win the title, but if they made the semis, I would not be surprised. So I'm going Tennessee. I think that they win this game by 20 plus. They are just really, really good.
Okay. I'm gonna go the other way. The other way. I like this Arkansas. I like this Arkansas offense quite a bit. I think Taylon Green has been a breath of fresh air. Still throws too many picks. It reminds me of the what's the big kid they had there last year? Initials JP, JT. Anyway, anybody?
No, I'm drawing a blank.
All right, fair. Not a great passer, but a definite threat on the ground. He's already gone for 330 yards.
They had KJ Jefferson last year.
KJ Jefferson, that's exactly who I was thinking of. Thank you. And they've got a great stable of running backs with Jackson and Hill. Both those guys averaging over 5 yards a carry. I think this Tennessee defense is going to get a test, Scott, and they've responded well in the past. I I have no. I'm going into this with my eyes wide open about how good Tennessee is, but I think the Hogs down there in Fayetteville. I think this game is probably 2 scores for most of it, but I think Arkansas can sneak in for a backdoor cover late in the game as Tennessee maybe starts subbing out. I'll take Arkansas and the 13.5.
I just think Tennessee's pass rush is just filthy. I just think that they're going to be able to pressure Green into making some dumb decisions.
Well, see, that's what I like about having a mobile quarterback, somebody that can move the pocket and break contain if they need.
Oh, he's a mobile quarterback. I just trust his legs a lot more than his arm.
Yeah. When he gets the pass rush, I pray he just tucks it under his arm. Just don't keep your eyes downfield. Just start running. That's what we're going to need here. Baylor traveling to Ames. Scott, Iowa State 11.5-point favorites. I got that one. What did we get for total?
Yeah. Here? Once again, there's no order, so I got to scroll and try to find all these.
12.5-point favorites here, and 44.5 is the numero. I don't know what to tell you, dude. This is a terrible, terrible Baylor football team.
Yep.
Iowa State is really getting it done on both sides of the ball this season. I love their defense. They certainly have enough offense to take care of business. Baylor doesn't play well on the road. They don't play well at home. Iowa State, I think, is the real deal. I think this could be a potential top 10 team within a few weeks, Scott. I'll take Iowa State big here, minus 11.5.
So Baylor was a tale of 2 games because they were awful and did nothing in the entire first half. Then they were phenomenal the entire second half, but didn't get the job done. They were that close and didn't get there. So, yeah, I don't think Aranda can coach, which is kind of shocking because they won a conference title a couple of years ago, but I thought he was going to get fired. I thought there was a legitimate chance he was getting fired after the Colorado loss and the BYU loss, and he's still here. So right. Iowa State had a good win against Houston, a good win by having to do nothing because Houston can't score.
Right.
I like Becht a lot. I think Becht's going to be able to throw it on this team. They don't have much of a ground game. They've been working on it, though. They kind of have a committee now. They're going to try to get the ground game going. But I think that Iowa State's good. Like, I think Campbell's gotten a lot of flack from us, rightfully so, because he's kind of underachieved the last couple of years as the head coach of this team. He's got a squad. Team's pretty good. Like, they beat Iowa for once. That was a shocker. They've been good. I think that Baylor's a team that I can't say quit, but I don't think they're any good. And I think that, once again, this might be Aranda's last season. So I'm going with Iowa State at home. I want more offensive production. I think Houston defensively, though, is a good team. I don't think that they're a bad defense. I just think the offense is that bad.
Yep.
But Iowa State, I think, is better. They're at home. I like the over in this game. I think Iowa State offensively can move it. And I think Baylor with their offense actually woke up in the second half against BYU. I don't mind the over in this game. I understand that Iowa State's defense is good. I think Baylor, though, can maybe make some big plays. But I think Iowa State will do enough. I just think Aranda is a bit, I'd say, out of his skis at this point. You might want to move on. So I'll go with Iowa State.
All right. Very good. Scott, it's the last game on the card, buddy. You ready?
I'll see if I can find it.
Okay. It's the only one we haven't used yet. It's going to be Miami as they travel to play an ACC game to where? Berkeley, California.
California, right.
Yeah. Jesus. Canes currently 10.5-point favorites, and 54 is the number on this one. You have the honors. You are away for this last pick, my friend.
Yeah, so Miami was fortunate to win that last game because damn Virginia Tech's coaches know how to clock manage. And that decision to fake a field goal inside the 15-yard line was absolutely terrible. Point is that they won the game. So Cam Ward kept his Heisman hopes alive despite throwing a couple picks. California this season, they have been fine, beat Auburn, which I don't know if that matters too much. But for Cal, that's a good win. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're 3-1, lost to Florida State. That's rough. Did have a bye last week, but who have they played? Beat UC Davis, FCS school, beat Auburn, which we know Auburn's just a head case team. San Diego State sucks, and they lost to Florida State. So I don't think this team's any good. I think that they've been getting by on a pretty easy schedule. Miami should be motivated. It was a game that they probably should have lost. They pretty much no-showed the game, and then they woke up in the second half and barely got the job done because the Hail Mary got overturned with no time left. I think Miami will show a lot more urgency. They were lucky to win that game. They're still undefeated. They're in control of their own destiny in the ACC, and they got a shot at the playoff. I think they put together a much better effort, and I think that mentally they are focused on this game after barely surviving last week in a slip-up spot. I think Miami kills this team.
Yeah, I think this is a great buy low spot for Miami. I think if they would have done what they were supposed to and covered the number against Vautech, I think this number would be a lot closer to like 14 and a half, 15, something in that neck of the woods. But it's not. We're getting them at 10 and a half. And this is a Hurricanes team, man. They have absolutely dominated on both sides of the ball. They're 4th in EPA per play on offense, 13th on defense. The Bears, on the other hand, 112th EPA on offense, 49th on defense. But again, you mentioned they've faced UC Davis, Auburn, and Florida State.
They lost to Florida State.
Yeah.
You know how bad you have to be to lose to Florida State this year?
Bad. They beat Davis 31-13, but they were down 13-7 in the second quarter. Didn't do much in that game. They got a 21-14 victory, as you mentioned, over Auburn. But you didn't mention, Scott, they were +5 in turnover margin.
Yeah.
That's going to make it tough. You can make the argument they certainly should have won by more than 7 getting that kind of break. They beat San Diego State, who was playing a freshman, redshirt freshman quarterback. And then, like I said, lost 14-9 to Florida State. I think this is a Miami team that is absolutely going to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. This Cal team gave up 12 TFLs versus Florida State, Scott. 12. That is not good. That is not good, my friend. I think this Miami defense is licking their chops, and I think they cover that number easily. I'll take Miami minus the 10.5. So
that line feels so low base, and it was also a midweekend. That was what, a Friday? That was a Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
So they got an extra day or so of prep, but Miami was destroying everybody. They had won a let up in a game they won, and now they're only laying 10.5. I don't think California's good.
Nope. California, good state, bad team.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Scott, that's it. We've reached that time. We have reached that time, Scott. People often ask us, since we do a show, we talk about college football. If you had to bet everything you had on one game, one single game, put it all on the line, push all your chips in the middle, which game would it be? And while we don't advise you ever doing that, if you had to do it for some weird reason, we do have a pick lined up, and we always do it in a segment that we lovingly call, Scott, Bet the Farm. You ready? Here we go. Very good. Very good. I love the cow with the flower in their mouth. Now, you'll notice this is normally the part where we have our farm hats that we put on. We're very proud of our farm hats. In fact, Scott is so proud of his. His doesn't travel.
I don't have my on for religious purposes. No, I'm joking. I'm just in town for a Jewish holiday, so I didn't bring the hat with me.
It's New Year for Scott. Don't be shy. It's New Year's.
Yes, it's religious reasons, not actually. I just forgot to bring it, so I'm going to blame it on the religion.
All right, very good. So, Scott, how we do last week with the farm? We talked about it earlier. We teased it earlier, but let's go into a little more depth. How we do?
Yeah, so we ended up backing Navy to get the job done. I still can't believe that line was so short against UAB because UAB just can't stop the run, and Navy torched them. The game was over in about 2 quarters. So a nice win for Navy, never in doubt.
Nope, never, ever a doubt.
I'm assuming you didn't find the banjo music.
I did not find the banjo music.
It's a damn shame. We got to download new banjo music.
I got a new computer. It's not on my files anymore. I've got to find new banjo.
Fine, we'll re-download the banjo music. It's fine.
That's fair. I have to remember where I got it. It was one of the free music sites. So
all right.
Good luck to me. Yeah, Navy. And it was one of the rare times you sent me moo early in the fourth quarter before the game was over.
Yeah, and you didn't even worry about me jinxing it because we're like, oh no, this game was already over.
It's over. And you ain't suddenly going to stop the Navy rushing attack and figure it out. So yeah, that was not good. All right, this week we're looking at the Pitt Panthers as they travel to North Carolina to take on the Tar Heels. 64.5 is the total. 2.5 is the spread. Skeeter, what do you got?
So, for this one, by pure coincidence, we're actually going to go with the line that's currently on the board. We are going to go with the Panthers, -2.5 on this one. Mostly fading North Carolina. They've had a bunch of injuries to the quarterback position, and they have been embarrassing themselves time and time again over the last few weeks. They've lost 2 straight games, gave up 70 to James Madison. That was a home game, by the way. Gave up 70 points in that game.
I watched that game. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on a college football field.
It was a great time. Ponytail gave up 70 in that one. So you figure, okay, you know what? It is not basketball, but you got a game against Duke. Duke's not that great at football. They got Manny Diaz as their head coach now. And North Carolina jumped out in a good get-right spot, a motivated rivalry angle. They're up 17-0 at half.
Turning it around.
They're up 20-0 halfway through the third quarter.
Sure.
What can go wrong? They lost the game. Gave up 21 unanswered points in the second half. In the final, basically 20-plus minutes. They got outscored 21-0. Now, Mac Brown is still there. Half the people want him out. Probably more than half at this point. They think that he's just a dinosaur in a different era. But I think Pittsburgh is a pretty solid team. Offensively, they are really, really good. I feel like people don't realize how good Pittsburgh's offense has actually been this season. If you want to go through the numbers offensively, 73 against Youngstown. It's Youngstown, but 73 is good against anybody. 38 against West Virginia, 28 against Cincinnati, pretty decent Cincinnati team, and 55 against Kent State. But North Carolina has lost 2 straight. They're on their 4th quarterback this season. Holstein's good. Reed's been a good running back. They had some pretty important news come out for Pitt earlier this week. They got their starting running back back. Hammond was suspended for unknown reasons. I don't know what that means. Sounds kind of sketchy, but he's back now. So now they got their running back depth back in order. They got Hammond back. They have Reed in the ground game. But North Carolina choked away a massive lead against Duke, gave up 70 at home to James Madison. This team is heading in the wrong direction, and it feels like this team's on the verge of a mutiny against Mac Brown, or maybe the boosters are on the verge of a mutiny. Give me Pitt. I think Pitt's a good team, and I think the spread's too cheap. But the North Carolina, I get they're at home. I want nothing to do with this team right now because they were having a hard time of even looking competent for a full 60 minutes. Give me Pitt.
Yeah, I think you can certainly make the argument Pitt's a lot better team than Duke.
Yeah Duke is 5-0, though. Shout out to Manny Diaz.
I know. All right, there you go. That's the show. That's Bet the Farm. That's top 25 picks. That's all you get. We bring it in almost under an hour. Not bad for us. Again, the views are going up. We're getting more and more people live. Let's see here. We got any JC Stone. He says Miami's going to crush. Absolutely true.
They should.
UCLA team total of 10.5 is the number there. Yeah. I don't know that I'll play the under, but I want no part of the over in that one. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, very good. Hey, guys, have a great week. All right. Happy Friday to everybody. You made it through the work week. Hopefully, a lot of people listening to us maybe got off a little early and I get a little extra time in their Friday afternoon. If not, hope you finish up work. Hope your boss isn't looking at you over your shoulder as you watch the show here. We wish everybody the best of luck all weekend long in your college plays, your NFL plays. Scott, I love doing this show, and we'll be back next week to do it. And for myself, for Scott Reichel, for the whole team here at winnersandwhiners.com, you guys have a great and profitable weekend. Scott Squared will be back at you. Same bat time, same bat channel. Next week, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, as we break down all the college football action in the top 25 and head back to school. You guys take care. We'll see you then.